we don't really know if users are engaging with it and liking it or not. Google doesn't share that with us. I will say that it's probably easy to get distracted right now. A lot of marketers are seeing disruptions in the SERP in the form of traffic losses because all these SERPs are higher on the page, moving your results lower, which definitely impacts conversion rates, traffic, all those great metrics we love reporting on. And so I think it's easy to kind of over-index on the fear, I guess, and kind of say, I need to change my entire strategy, really pivot immediately.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Optimize Your Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Ian Binnick, and in this episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down and talking to the SEO manager of G2. His name is Evan Sherbert, and I really hope that you enjoy this episode. Evan, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. How are you doing?
It's a pleasure to be here, Ian. I'm doing well. A great start to a week.
So happy to hear it. It's honestly, the pleasure's all ours. I mean, I'm like super happy to be talking to you. Obviously, you're coming from a really cool company, G2, big name in the space, especially in the software space, right? So it's kind of an honor to get a chance to just speak with you today, man. So I'm really excited to get into these questions.
Looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to this podcast, looking forward to learning more about your agency and all the exciting work you're doing as well.
Awesome, Evan. All right, let's dive in. I want to just start really broad here. Let's just hear a little bit more about your role at G2, you know, what you're responsible for and what you're kind of up to right now.
Yeah, great question. So my name is Evan Sherbert, as you very well know. I'm the SEO manager at G2. I oversee our strategy and manage our global SEO team across the US, across the APAC or Asian Pacific region. I've been with G2 for about 3 years now, and we've grown a lot during that time. And for those who are not familiar, G2 is a global software and services reviews website that helps software and service researchers and buyers make the most informed decisions using real user reviews. So we do a lot of interesting work for a global audience. And so mostly I work with my team to build targeted visibility and traffic to core page types on G2. I collaborate with other teams at G2 to ensure that SEO and best practices are factored into their work that potentially impacts software buyers. I also meet with our sales team and customers to discuss SEO and to solve some problems. I do a little bit of everything. It's quite nice.
I love it. Kind of sounds like SEO is so, I mean, obviously it's very ingrained in what the core of what G2 does in general, right? But even inside of the business itself and what you're doing, it sounds like, hey, like if you have an employee that's making content, or they're writing content, you're going to be having your team look at that and make sure that it's optimized, right? That's like what I'm kind of getting, right?
Definitely. Across content, across like new landing pages, new campaigns. If it focuses on the buyer, if someone's going to see it, if Google's going to see it, we definitely want to make sure that best practices, or at least we have some sort of just take on the process, so we can have recommendations we can provide. We also have to grapple with the fact that not everything has to be for SEO, and to kind of make peace with that on the inside. But yeah, we love collaborating internally.
That's awesome. Follow-up question to that is, there are so many things that you're kind of leading right now and that you have your hands in. And I know that SEO has traditionally been a very long-term investment, right? Like that's putting time into SEO, it takes a very long time to see that success metric, right? So I'm kind of curious, how are you measuring success from your SEO efforts at G2? And maybe it's a segmented answer because obviously you have a bunch of different things you're doing. So maybe like in general, how are you measuring success?
Definitely. And so like you said, SEO, both like KPIs, both the things we're trending towards have changed in the last couple of years. But at G2, we're definitely focused on visibility to our category pages. We have, not only product reviews, information about products you'd see like Asana, like Riverside FM, like other products in the space, but also larger categories. Users searching for things like CRM software, ERP systems. We really want to focus our visibility not only on products, but also the broader categories that people drive to these pages. Maybe they're not sure of what they're looking for yet in terms of product specifics, which means focusing on that category is even more important for that upper funnel sort of targeted traffic.
That's great. Obviously, it makes sense, right? That's what you guys are selling as G2, right? You have that whole PPC part of the business too, where you kind of are offering those paid sponsorship spots too. But This kind of gets into the second question that I was going to ask, which is, you're trying to increase visibility as much as you can to these pages. So what are some strategies or tactics you're using to actually do that for G2's pages and for those category pages?
Yeah. So this is a bit of a boring answer. I was thinking about this before this. I think timing plays into this. For our audience, there was recently a broad core algorithm update that deployed in April of this year. It's the March update that deployed in April. And since then, a lot of enterprise level sites have been impacted by this. And so since then, we've been all trying to figure out, have we seen any traffic decreases? If so, how do we get that visibility back? How do we kind of take things back to foundations and ensure that all of our pages are higher quality? And so, kind of a long-winded answer. At G2, I really want to take things back to basics at the moment, kind of back to SEO foundations and content pruning, truly focus on quality and depth, and also focusing on SEO A/B testing. Kind of one of the biggest challenges for an enterprise level site, especially with G2, we have over 1 million index pages, is how do you ensure that all those pages are the highest quality? How do you ensure that a landing page that somebody lands on, depending on what query they search, that fully satisfies the reason they landed on that page? Unfortunately, we don't have 1 million people that work at G2. So how do we do that with my team and still, have enough energy, work in the day to also be fully gripped in with the work we're dealing with? How do we make sure that all that quality is sustainable? So that's where coming back to basics, focusing on content pruning can really help with that.
It's so interesting. I think it takes a large organization like G2 to kind of talk about that, because most companies aren't going to have that problem. I mean, maybe companies like G2 will, but the companies that I talk to a lot of times, they have maybe like less than 300 pages or 400 pages, max. And in your case, you have 1 million. I wanted, it's really interesting. And I wanted to ask, so content pruning, that makes sense. I wanted to ask about SEO A/B testing. What does that look like? I think everyone that hears A/B testing, at least nowadays, or at least people that are a little less educated, they're going to think, oh, it's landing page A/B testing, or it's, changing the colors of buttons or sections or headlines. But what does it look like from an SEO standpoint, especially with the way that the algorithm has been changing a lot recently? I'm kind of curious, like, how you guys are handling that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for the SEO community, like with most terms, we use them synonymously, even when they don't mean the same thing. For A/B testing, for example, we don't really do it in the same laboratory setting that most people would do as SEOs. We do a lot of split testing. And so, for example, if we really want to test the impact of moving content, for example, from the bottom of the page, where typically SEO gets kind of stuffed down there, to the top of the page, and want to see that impact, we can create a test group and a control group of pages, and then use tools like SEO testing, like other SEO tools available, to really measure that impact to see, is there a difference in click engagement and impressions and click-through rate and ranking once we made these changes, pre and post, to see if it's really worth applying to all of the pages. That's kind of a thing with scalable sites, is that, we have all these pages we could roll this out to. If it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, it's hard to scale back. And so wanting to really see at a scalable level before we scale that to everything, and will it work? It's definitely one of the things we want to keep tabs on to make sure we're not wasting any resources.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that you kind of mentioned that a lot of people think synonymously, and it's a little different in the SEO space. And it kind of has to be, right? Especially with how drastically things are changing and also how long maybe these tests are. It just makes sense for it to be a little different. So definitely. Love the answer. Okay, so G2, large site, lots of pages, and obviously you're cutting pages down, the content pruning. What are your thoughts on AI? Especially the people that are really churning out AI pages. I know that there was an update released a few months ago, and I think even another one since then, that basically penalized sites that were heavily pushing AI content. But then at the same time, Google is really trying to push people to use their AI for the indexed answers. So I'm just curious, like, what are your thoughts as an SEO professional, someone who does this all the time? Where do you think AI is going to end up in the SEO space, and then also how it's going to impact the digital marketing space as a whole?
Definitely, yeah. SEOs have had an interesting relationship with AI, especially when ChatGPT was popularized in 2022, 2023. We've all been interested, how can we save time? How can we do, the manual work we don't like at scale using AI, how can we use this to save time for us? How can we use this to not, write content all the time? I think we've been trying to figure out the best way to use it, and Google has also been changing their stances on it. Initially, Google was very against AI. I think this kind of aligns with the fact that over 60% of the web is duplicated content right now. They want to really focus on unique information. They don't want to spend time crawling content they've already seen and costing them a lot of money. They want to focus on unique things they've never seen before. And so I think initially SEOs were all in on AI and using it to publish tons of content, just everyone using the same information, the same people also ask questions, and it worked until it didn't. Recently, Google changed their stance saying, AI is acceptable if it's good for the user, if it's good for, the content quality. We don't want to just see someone taking content from site A and putting it on site B with a few changes. And so I think with that in mind, we're still going to see a ton of AI content usage. But I think really smart marketers and SEOs will be using it for focused use cases, not for writing entire landing pages, not for entire campaigns, but definitely as almost an assistant to help you get, I'm saying myself again, more efficient, more kind of saving time on these long processes, more of an assistant instead of a replacement.
Definitely. I kind of agree with you. I think it's all comes down to the prompt, which makes sense, right? I mean, there's a lot of strategies and tactics out now. I mean, even stuff that we do in our agency, not necessarily in the SEO space, but in the cold email space, we'll use Clay, and then we'll have it essentially write the first sentence for us, but we give it a very templatized sentence where it's like, hey, here's the first 7 words in the sentence. Can you fill in the last 5? And I mean, it works pretty well. We get pretty high reply rates through our emails and stuff. So I kind of see that in the SEO world. We had someone else on the podcast recently, or actually like 2 months ago now, but he has an SEO agency, and it's really interesting because he wasn't necessarily super niche. I mean, he worked with B2B SaaS, but he'd work in various industries inside of B2B SaaS. I mean, that could be really broad, right? You could have health, you could have, financial, whatever. So the way he got caught up to speed was he would have an interview with like a salesperson, and he would ask them questions, they would answer, and then he would have AI summarize it for him. And he would use those answers to do 2 things: satisfy like the SERP's requests of, being a really optimized page, and then also write that unique content. And I think that's sort of where, like what you're kind of mentioning here, that's where the industry is going. It just kind of sounds like some people are just ahead. Like you said, the savvy marketers are taking advantage of it. And then some of the less savvy marketers are just kind of ripping content, ChatGPT, getting 5-10 blogs done every day, if not more. And those guys are going to be the ones that are probably penalized the most. And hopefully if like they are agencies, they're not, screwing their clients over at the same time. But that's a topic for another time.
That's the thing. It always works until it doesn't. All those short-term things like, really over-optimizing keyword stuffing, link exchanges, these things can work in the short term, but eventually Google will catch on. And it's really hard to come back from a penalty.
Exactly. And, this goes into another question I had, which was Reddit. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm really curious what your thoughts are on Reddit, especially because of how prevalent it is in the top of the search engine now, the search engine result page. I'm just curious, how is that impacting D2, or how are you potentially going to start utilizing Reddit a little bit more, or do you think that it's an over-index and you think that it's not worth like the short-term gain? It's better just to focus on your long-term goals. Like, what are your thoughts on Reddit?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think as a user before I started getting added to the SERPs, I loved it a lot more. I think now that I see it not only in its like by itself in the SERP, but also in like the discussions and forums SERP feature as well, it takes up a ton of real estate on page 1 of the SERP and beyond. And we don't really know if users are engaging with it and liking it or not. Google doesn't share that with us. I will say that it's probably easy to get distracted right now. A lot of marketers are seeing disruptions in the SERP in the form of traffic losses because all these SERPs are higher on the page, moving your results lower, which definitely impacts conversion rates, traffic, all those great metrics we love reporting on. And so I think it's easy to kind of over-index on the fear, I guess, and kind of say, I need to change my entire strategy, really pivot immediately. I know at G2, we've seen that for more informational keywords, things like, is a product good or bad? Is something worth it? A lot of interesting things around like categories, like, what is a good CRM system? So some of these things we're seeing, some more SERP competition. But we also know that Google scales things back. It's constantly testing. To kind of go outside the question a bit, like AI overview is a great jumping off point. When they really kind of rolled out AI overview into the SERPs outside of Reddit, they really did so, and it had a negative response. I think it was in about 15% of all queries, and now that's been pared back to about 7%, the lowest we've ever seen, because it's still in testing. I think they're very quick to deploy to kind of keep up with the rest of the industry, but I don't know if users are fully sold on sort of that kind of content. But back to Reddit, I know it's definitely don't over-index in kind of trying to change your strategy. Definitely keep on doing what you've been doing, but definitely keep in mind that it's going to be in the SERP for a while. They're not going to completely abandon it. They've invested some money into Reddit, so it's definitely going to be here to stay.
Sorry for the interruption, but real quick, this podcast is sponsored by Optimize Your Marketing. If you're a B2B tech company running PPC ads, but struggling to see solid return on ad spend, then we're the agency for you. With a mix of first-party competitive research, constant AI monitoring of your accounts, visualized A/B tests, all wrapped up in your very own dashboard, we're the last PPC agency you will ever need to work with. If you're interested, reach out today at any one of our various social accounts or visit our website at optimize.marketing to apply. Now, let's get back to the show. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I've had a couple of clients. We don't really do SEO too much in our agency. We have, a few clients that we help out or advise with, but we primarily do PPC. But even still, AI has impacted PPC as well. And we'll get into that in a different time. But, it's just so interesting. When the AI overviews came out, we were doing a lot of like hacky, like programmatic SEO things. Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, the AI overviews helped us a lot because we were building some, a couple of clients were building a market, right? They're SaaS startup, like there's not a market around it. They're disruptive. And we had like hundreds of pages for like these terms that maybe got like 1 or 2 clicks a month on searches, but AI saw that. And I don't know, it just thought that was like, oh, this guy's a thought leader. Let's push this in all of our AI responses. So anytime someone was searching about like in the telematics space is like what this client was doing, we were showing up as like related resources at the bottom.
Interesting.
So we were getting all this like referral traffic or like direct traffic, which was so weird because we weren't doing like ads for them. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until we like just did this like really deep competitive research and we saw that and we're like, oh, like we're big fans of the AI overview. Like this is pretty great. But I could see why a lot of people are like, this doesn't help me at all. Like I don't like this. So I could see it both ways, but I'm kind of a fan.
Definitely. I know SEOs only care about SERP placement. We know how much the click-through rate just dramatically decreases from rank 1 to 2 to 5. At this point, with all the SERP features, if you're below rank 5, you're probably not seeing much traffic. It's incredibly competitive out there.
I mean, especially, and let me actually just ask here, just as like a maybe dummy question. But when you're mentioning, are you talking about organic listings or are you talking about just listings in general? Like,
yeah, to clarify, just organic listings, organic 1 through 10.
Gotcha. Yeah. If you're organic 1 through 5, that's about as good as it gets. I mean, because you're going to have about 6 other ad spots on that page.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe the AI overview as well. So, I mean, if you're 1 through 5, you're on page 1. If you're not, you're basically not.
Oh, yeah. We've been noticing all of our PPC friends have 4 ad slots now above rank 1, and we're very jealous. Very jealous.
Well, I mean, all I got to say is it's getting more expensive, and so it's getting harder. So maybe don't be too jealous. Great. Evan, I want to get into 2 questions we ask all of our guests. This can be SEO related. It also can just be digital marketing, industry related in general. But what are some overrated digital marketing strategies and tactics that you're seeing in 2024?
I think I still see some marketers and some SEOs even just really overdoing it with some vanity metrics, things like, like, shares, followers, just total traffic, not really being specific or drilling down into like the targeted campaigns and targeted traffic. I think not focusing on your business or your clients' KPIs is definitely a miss in 2024. For SEO specifically, it's not just about overall traffic. It's about that targeted traffic to the most important business driving pages on your website or your client's website. This is the time where clients are looking to churn, looking to downgrade services. This is the time to really show targeted value.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I think, just looking at the macroeconomic situation, we're not technically in a downturn or recession, but a lot of businesses are operating like we are. And I think it makes sense. I mean, you see all the layoffs, you see how expensive and like inflation is going up, right? So you're right. Especially in the agency side, I feel it. It's harder to sell people on things. And especially as someone who's starting out, it's a lot harder to sell people on things. So yeah, I totally get that. I think demonstrating value to your clients is important. I think it's sort of something I call like marketing the marketing a little bit, which not in a condescending way, right? You're not just trying to like make your stuff sound better than it actually is. But if you can, I think it's all about communication. If you're able to communicate that value to your clients and educate them at the same time, because maybe your clients don't, they're hiring you for a reason. They're not experts. So you have to somehow dumb it down in a sense where like they're going to be able to pick it up quickly on a 30-minute or a 60-minute call, and they don't have to think about it afterwards. So I love that answer. I think that's, it's a good one. It's back to the basics.
Definitely. I think also with that kind of that fear of like budget, that fear of, trying to get the most efficient spend, the most efficient reach right now, I think it's definitely a mistake to trying to target the most broad audience as possible. I think you could definitely agree with that. You're probably shooting yourself in the foot by not trying to get deep into your niche or do some targeted outreach or just some audience engagement. Definitely going too broad will definitely not help you out. Understanding your audience and their habits will definitely improve engagement and conversions.
Yes, I actually just posted about this today.
Good timing.
It's sort of, yes, it's actually like, we had a guest on last week. Her name was Toss, and we had a great conversation around niching down and how it has revolutionized her business. She's not an agency, she's a consultancy. But as soon as she niched down and only did B2B paid media landing pages, and didn't just offer like, overall digital marketing strategy, she saw a lot more inbound and became like the expert for big companies like Calendly to just reach out to them or her and say, hey, like, can you help us? And that helped a lot. And so basically, we're doing that with our agency too. We were initially doing like technology hedging is like what we used to do. And it was like, hey, like this new technology came out, let's implement it in your business and see if we can get it to drive results. And that was so hard to sell to people because it's such a niche thing that like, and people aren't really searching for it, right?
Yeah.
But go back to our core skill set. We're like, hey, like we sell PPC services to B2B companies and we have results to show for it. Let's just sell that instead. And so far, it's been a good decision, but it was pretty recent. So we'll see if it actually plays out. All right, well, let's get into underrated. What do you think are underrated things?
I think underrated. I think trying to do things the way they are today, trying to like not just continue the way you are and not changing is definitely not something you should continue. I think like, people talk about like diversifying your content types, right? A lot of people talk about, investing heavily in TikTok, investing heavily in video content, kind of like just following trends blindly. I think that there's probably an opportunity for a lot of businesses or niches or verticals for that. But it doesn't mean it's right for your vertical, right? This means instead of looking for like just TikTok or video, look for opportunities to diversify. Look for, other content outside of text. This could be infographics, video content, podcasts. Other content that really differentiates you from your competitors on page one. Leverage your first-party data, deliver insights that can't be found elsewhere. This is sort of that unique content that Google is looking for that can't be copied by, doing some skyscraping, doing some SEO research. this is stuff that's unique to you and the audience you kind of serve.
Yeah, we actually just had Amy Stewart. She was the director of content at PayScale on a couple weeks ago. And part of her yearly goals is to produce a 100-page report of data that they collect, and it's summarized, and it can be basically viewed by anyone can basically download this, and then they realize they want to work with PayScale. So that's differentiated content, right? I think you're right. I think a trend that I'm hearing you mention a lot is don't go after the trendy things and don't over-index on these things that are going to be short-lived, because at the end of the day, if you make great quality content, it will last the test of time. Whereas if you make short-term gains, you might get some clients from that, or you might see some great results from that. But as soon as it kind of goes away, you're just a sitting duck, so it's sort of this FOMO of oh, what's the next thing? I have to be on the next thing if you're going to live that way. So yeah, I think you're right. Just quality over quantity really makes sense. But if you can do both, that's even better, right?
Definitely. I think a lot of SEOs are also kind of afraid or don't know what to do with social media. It's not, we don't think of it as an organic traffic driver. It's a referral traffic driver, definitely. But definitely not something SEOs think of. We think of, we optimize the page, the content, build some links, and then set it, forget it, essentially. Definitely leverage social media to signal boost your SEO. It may think oh, that's a content marketing task. It's not SEO. You're wrong. I'll say it. You're wrong. When you publish new content, you roll out new changes to large page types, you improve your website, tell people about it. Get your teams to share those updates with their network. This will definitely boost your signals. It'll help get referral traffic and just boost your brand's visibility. Don't be afraid of social media.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because you're right. So many people are scared of posting on LinkedIn, and I don't know. I feel like LinkedIn content gets kind of indexed pretty well too sometimes. I mean, if it's something you already produced, just kind of repurpose it, put it out on another channel. And like you said, it's a signal back to Google, hey, there's some authority here. Hey, people are talking about this. Obviously, I don't know how the algorithm works as well as you do, but I'm sure that kind of there's some sort of social listening or signal, I guess you could call it, that's increasing your rankings as a result. So I love that insight.
And if posting scares you, you can definitely use it for even research. And we talked about diversifying your content types, doing research on what your audience actually engages with, what content they enjoy. Can definitely help provide inspiration or some future content opportunities for you to prioritize.
Absolutely. Evan, that's all the questions I have for you today. This is a great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Before we go, Evan, how could people reach out to you if they want to learn more about G2 and the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn. Easy to search, pretty easy, pretty memorable last name, Sherbert, like the ice cream. You can always find me there.
Awesome, Evan. Well, thank you so much for being on. I really look forward to pushing this out to our listeners, and I'm excited to keep in touch with you in the future, man.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Optimize Your Marketing podcast. If you ever want to be a guest on the show, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can search Ian Vinnick and you'll find me, or you can fill out the form on our website. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating. We post episodes like this every single week, so if you're interested, we would love for you to follow along on our Spotify or on our YouTube. Until next week, I'll see you then.